Okay, so today we're going to be taking a look at Lesson 6. We're going to be solving some problems involving mixed units of capacity. So for number 1, we're going to determine the following sums and differences, and we're going to show our work. Okay, so remember, whenever we do this, we want to make sure we're adding like units. So sometimes we might have to rename a measurement into a smaller unit in order to be able to add or subtract. So first up, for letter A, we see that we have 3 quarts plus 1 quart. Well, that equals 4 quarts. Okay, and remembering back to the inside cover page, we know that 4 quarts is going to equal 1 gallon. Okay, because inside our large G, remember there are 4 Q's. Okay, so always go back to that page. Now for letter B, we see that we have 2 gallons and 1 quart plus 3 quarts. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the quarts, and we see that we have 4 quarts. Okay. Now we know that 4 quarts equals 1 gallon. So now our final answer, we have 2 gallons plus this 1 gallon, so we have a total of 3 gallons. Okay. Now letter C, you see that we have 1 gallon minus 1 quart. Well, we can't subtract a gallon minus a quart, so we need to get our 1 gallon into 4 quarts. Now we have 4 quarts minus 1 quart equals 3 quarts. The same thing with the next one. We have 5 gallons minus 1 quart. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to pull off 1 gallon and turn it into 4 quarts. And we know that we have 4 gallons left over. So our 5 gallons is now 4 gallons and 4 quarts minus 1 quart. So 4 minus 1 is 3, and then we have 4 gallons left. Okay. Now our next one, we have 2 cups plus 2 cups. Well, that gives us 4 cups.
Please come to the office.
Flipping back to the inside of the cover here, we see that there's 4 C's inside 1 Q, so that means we have 1 quart. Okay, now we have 1 quart and 1 pint plus 3 pints. So we're going to add our pints, and we see that we have 4 pints. Okay, now we know that 2 pints is 1 quart, so our 4 pints equals 2 quarts. So now we have 1 plus 2 to give us a total of 3 quarts. Okay. Now letter G, we have 2 quarts minus 3 pints. Okay, so for again this one, what we're going to do is we're going to take off 1 quart and turn it into pints. Okay. So we know that 1 quart is 2 pints. But if we notice, we can't do 2 minus 3. So this strategy actually won't work. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to cross this off, and we're going to take a look at 2 quarts. Okay. We want to turn all of it now into pints. So if we look, we have our 2 quarts, and we see that we have 4 P's inside. So that means we have 4 pints. So now I have 4 pints minus 3 pints, and that equals 1 pint. Okay, so now for letter H, we have 5 quarts minus 3 cups. Okay, so we're going to take off one of our quarts. Okay, we know that 1 quart contains 4 cups. So now we can subtract 4 cups minus 3 cups, and we have 1 cup, and then we have 4 quarts left over. Okay, so what you want to do is make sure you're adding and subtracting like units and do any converting that you need in order to get your answer. Okay, now for the next one, we're going to be following the following sums and differences showing our work. So it's going to be continuing on the same thing, but a little bit harder because we're going to have a little bit more mixed units here. So if we take a look at our first one here, we have 6 gallons and 3 quarts plus 3 quarts. So our 3 quarts and 3 quarts, well, that equals 6 quarts. Okay, and I know that 6 quarts is 1 gallon, and 2 quarts are left over. Okay, 4 plus 2 gets us our 6. So now we have 6 gallons plus 1 gallon, 7 gallons, and then our 2 quarts left over. Now moving on to the next one, okay, we see 10 gallons and 3 gallons, so that equals 13 gallons. And then 3 quarts and 3 quarts 6 quarts. Okay, now just like letter A, we know that 6 quarts is 1 gallon and 2 quarts. So now when we go to get our final answer, we have 13 and 1. So we have 14 gallons and then 2 quarts left over. Okay. Next, let's do some subtraction. Okay. Now, remember we start with the smallest unit. So in this case, we would start with our pints. Now we see 1 pint minus 2 pints. Okay, well, we're going to need to rename then. So what we're going to do is we're going to take off a gallon. Now, I know that 1 gallon contains 8 pints. So we're going to take 8 pints from our gallon plus the 1 that we have right here. So that gives us 9 pints. So now I have 8 gallons and 9 pints minus 2 pints. So 9 minus 2 is 7. And then we have 8 gallons left. Okay. Moving on to letter D here. So now we have 7 gallons, 1 pint, minus 2 gallons, 7 pints. Now again, 1 pint minus 7 pints. Well, we obviously don't have enough. So just like letter C, we're going to rename that. We're going to take 6 gallons, and we're going to convert that other gallon into pints. Okay, so now we're going to take our 8 pints plus the 1. Now we have 9 pints. So now I can do 9 pints minus 7 pints to get 2 pints. 6 gallons minus 2 gallons to get 4 gallons. Okay. Moving on to our next one, let's take a look at cups now. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our cups and let's combine our cups. So we get 16 quarts and 6 cups. But we know that 4 cups equals a quart. So this is 1 quart, and then we have 2 cups left over. So now we have 16 quarts and 1 quart, and that gets us 17 quarts, 2 cups left over. Okay, now our next one, we're adding. So I'm going to take my 6 gallons and my 3 gallons, and I got 9 gallons. 5 pints and 3 pints gets us 8 pints. Okay? And we know that 8 pints equals 1 gallon. Okay? So now we have 9 gallons plus 1 gallon is 10 gallons, and we have 0 pints left over. Okay? So now let's take a look at a few word problems. The capacity of a pitcher is 3 quarts. Right now, it contains 1 quart and 3 cups. How much more liquid can the pitcher hold? Okay, so if we set up our tape diagram, okay, we know that the total pitcher contains 3 quarts. Okay, right now we have 1 quart and 3 cups. We want to know how much more is left. So we're going to subtract this out because we see how much more. Okay, so our problem would look like that. Okay. Now, just like we did in the other ones, we're going to take off a quart and turn that into 4 cups. Now we can subtract. So now we have 4 cups minus 3 cups, which gives us 1 cup. 2 quarts minus 1 quart gets us 1 quart. Okay, so the pitcher can hold 1 quart and 1 cup more liquid. Okay. Next, moving on to number 4 with Dorothy here. Okay, now Dorothy follows the recipe in the table to make her grandmother's cherry lemonade. How much lemonade does the recipe make? Okay, so this one's a little bit tricky because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking these 4 ingredients and combining them to find out our total amount. Okay. So in order to do this, we need to combine like units. So in this case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at what unit we can all make them. Okay. Now, usually we would go to the smallest unit. In this case, would be cups. But in this case, we don't have to do that because we know that 2 cups actually equals 1 pint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into 1 pint. Okay. So we're going to actually go through and turn everything into pints now. So now for water, we know that we need 1 gallon and 1 quart. Okay, well we know that 1 gallon has 8 pints. 1 quart has 2 pints. So that gives us a total of 10 pints. Okay, now 3 quarts gets us 6 pints. Okay. So by converting everything into a smaller unit, it's going to make it easier to now go through and combine our ingredients. Okay, so now for our tape diagram, we're trying to find the total amount, and we know that we have 5 pints, 1 pint, 10 pints, and then 6 pints. Okay, so now we can add all those up. And you see that we have a total of 22 pints. Okay. Now what we could do now is now convert it back into larger units. We don't have to because the question doesn't give us a specific unit. But we know that 22 pints, we can now convert that. Okay, so we know that 1 gallon contains 8 pints. So we know 8 times 2 is 16. So that we have enough here for 2 gallons. Okay, so that gives us 6 pints left. Which would then be 3 quarts. Okay. So here's your 16 pints. Here's your 6 pints. Okay. So now the recipe makes 22 pints, or 2 gallons, 3 quarts. Okay. Now, next question, okay, we see for letter B here, says, how many more cups of water could Dorothy add to the recipe to make an exact number of gallons of lemonade? Okay. So, well, right now we have 2 gallons and 3 quarts. So we want to know what do we need to add to that to get us to an even 3 gallons. Okay. Now if we think about using the arrow method here, we have 2 gallons, 3 quarts. Well, we know that each gallon has 4 quarts. So that means we need to add 1 more quart to get to our 3 gallons.